Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. Today guys, we're going to be diving down to take another look at Bitcoin. We've seen some interesting things occur, so I really wanted to spend the time to actually go through the data in a little bit more clarity so you guys know what to expect to happen next. Now as I get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you are going to be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with all of that said, done, and out of the way, let's jump on down into the desktop and take a look at what has been going on most recently with BTC. Okay guys, we're going to start things off with our hourly charts, and specifically we want to be taking a look at this big pump to the upside that has happened here. Now this obviously came, I think, pretty much as I actually went live with the video at 2 o'clock, and we instantaneously saw this candle move to the upside. Now there is an explanation to it, so I do want to kind of go through what that was looking like, because in the previous video I was actually kind of thinking this is more than likely going to go down. The only difference really between now and then is the stochastic RSI has just stayed up in the overbought area, and this becomes very clear once we actually dive into the different timelines. But first of all, before we do that, I do want to acknowledge the entire structure that we've had here. Okay, so pretty much from these low points that we had on the 24th of February, about 5 a.m., we actually started to see a good ABC move to the upside. This was an area that actually turned impulsive, basically making this a 1, 2, 3 waves to the upside. We were expecting a fourth wave pullback. Now this actually played out over a series of a few hours. It finished actually on the 26th at midnight. Then we started to see the ABC move to the downside. Now there's actually a smaller ABC inside the A wave. There was no defined move within the B wave, and then this led us down lower. Now this move was completed to the downside basically yesterday about 9 p.m. and then we started to get a bit of a bump to the upside. This turned impulsive, and about 2 o'clock today we got confirmation of that when it moved higher. Now we can jump into this particular area just here. And we should acknowledge that this fourth wave pullback, this larger ABC move, completed the fourth wave, and now we are heading up towards the fifth wave, right? And the fifth wave is made up, I should say, of 5 sub waves, right? Wave 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, right? And so we're working our way up towards the 1.618 target, which did change, it altered. It's no longer as low as it was before. It actually went up with this deeper ABC move. So this is now actually set right up there at $42,500, right? So we obviously can see that we had this push up. We had a little bit of a red candle here, and we're a bit of an undecided market right now as we really kind of fighting off this little area. Now, if I actually throw the volume on here, you can see how the volume is decreasing. This is basically a stabilization and now waiting for reversal. Okay, so just bear in mind that we had interesting volume push us up. We reached, what is this, high point just up here, about 41,460-ish, around that area. And as that volume decreases, that basically now is going to usher in a reversal, and this is actually the fourth wave pullback. Now, in order to get this this fifth wave to the same points, because we have to move our fifth wave up here on the larger scale and the fifth wave on our smaller scale. This is the kind of target that we're looking for. Now I'm going to remove that fib because we do not need it, and I'm going to draw another one, right? So we have a high point that I think is likely to hold here. We have to think about how low things are likely to go. Now if the fifth wave is going to come in line with 42,500, then we could potentially expect a retest of this lower area here, which again would put us around the level of 39,750, maybe actually touching on the line of 650. 750. It's going to be somewhere in this spot, I would have thought. This would actually then allow our 1.618 target on the larger time frame, like the 4-hourly, for example, and of course these sub-wave counts right here coming in on our hourly chart, hitting their 1.618 at $42,500. So there's going to be an interesting kind of ABC play out here. So I reckon that we would end up with an ABC move taking us down into this kind of range, and it should look something like this. Now there might be a smaller ABC inside this A wave, and there might be something similar that we saw over here side, right? A small ABC, then no wave count for the B wave, and then another ABC down. So we're going to be kind of open to this one to see how low this thing goes. The lower this fourth wave goes, the higher expectation will be on the 1.618. Of course, we should be very aware of where these invalidation points are. We should not drop down any lower than 38,500 $480, which will be this high point of wave 1. Fourth wave is not allowed to cross wave 1, so therefore we have an idea of where invalidation comes in. So for clarity on that, I'll just mark it up here. It comes in at $38,483. Okay, so that is the area that we are looking for. Now, I'm not going to get this exactly on there, so I'm going to call it 485. Okay, so we want to stay above that pink line just there. Okay, so once that ABC wave comes in, which I reckon is going to be around this 39,750 in that kind of range, we should then be looking for, on a small account here, 5 waves that just take us up, okay, because there's waves inside waves, and I don't want to go into too much detail on that because we already have a 5th wave that is broken down into 5 waves, and this 5th wave is potentially going to be broken down into 5 waves as well, but just expect that it won't be a straight line up like this one. It would be more gradual, something probably more similar to what was going on over this side here. Okay, so once all of this comes in, and once we actually have this high point hit, this is where we'd actually then start to see a slightly deeper ABC correction. Okay, and I expect this to be reasonable in its length, because it is the finishing move of a 5th wave, and we should expect something of substance to actually come in here. So we will be expecting some kind of retracement of significance, and it should be very, very noticeable. There might be lots of fundamental reasons in the real world as to why it's going on, but it's also very natural inside the charts that we would see this kind of pullback, okay? How low it goes, we do not know until we actually start those waves to the downside. And of course, we could speculate on various different Fibonacci retracement levels as to what might be the most typical, right? So for example, if I actually run from the bottom to the top of our expectations here, this actually then shows us that we might move down towards, $37,000 again, potentially, as we look to have a deep correction. And let's say a deep correction, it's just a natural correction after such a progressive move to the upside. Now, that's the hourly chart, and I do want to kind of explain this particular set of candles that we've had in the middle here, okay, where they came from and why I was thinking of a correction when actually it was a pump that we saw. And it all came down to this 4-hourly chart. The 4-hourly chart was actually oversold at the time that we were down in this range. This allowed us to grow and keep the hourly chart in an overbought area. This actually now is going to be bringing everything back up in line with our 8-hourly chart. So as we talk about potentially moving up a little bit towards that $42,500, that effectively will make the 1 hour, 4 hour, 8 hour all overbought. The daily's also started to move up a little bit, and the weekly has also finally come out of the oversold area. So progression is happening here, but I do want to kind of expect some kind of decent pullback to happen once we actually complete these 5 waves. And what that'll allow us to do is effectively actually see these stochastic RSIs correct from their overbought areas on the 4-hourly, the 8-hourly, for example. This will actually then give us a good reset position to allow us to continue the growth to the upside. Now, I am going to shoot up into our 8-hourly chart, actually, because that's what the line's already drawn on it. Here we can actually see a much larger A, B, and C move playing out. Now, this move to the upside is very corrective in its nature, and it comes after a breakdown from the recent highs, right? We had the head and shoulder pattern. This was broken. We tested the neckline by pushing above it. We set that. We moved back down, etc. Now, what we have here is the potential to move on up towards $47,000. This flat correction should look to complete up there. And once we actually have that, we then potentially look for further corrections to the downside. Now, again, we don't know how deep they're going to go, but they're going to be of significance, much larger than you see or would expect to see on the hourly chart. This is, of course, the 4-hourly, the 8-hourly, very close to the daily chart. Now, of course, as we come up into these larger time frames, you can really see the significance of these pullbacks that we've been having with the head and shoulder pattern, and obviously this recent move that we had up here to the upside in this pullback. This is the kind of pullback that we should be expecting when we actually start to reach those higher levels. So again, we are looking for some interesting moves on the shorter time frame up, and then obviously on the shorter time frame back down, and then of course on the larger time frames we are actually talking about progressively moving up towards $47,000. Once we actually take all those ones out, it's fair game to assume that we are actually going to have another deep correction or something similar that we've had previously like this, and this actually then allows us to reset the stochastic RSIs, the momentum, and actually allow profits to get taken off the table and then re-enter the market when the markets are more favorable. So right now we are actually looking pretty decent on the charts, even though we are talking about a potential correction that is due. It is actually all very healthy. Now, as we come up into our weekly chart, we can, of course, acknowledge the actual structure of what's been going on the entire bull run here. This is, of course, 5 waves, and we are actually still inside this 4th wave, in my opinion. We haven't actually moved up to the minimum threshold of a 5th wave just yet. And it is very possible that this completely breaks down. I'm not completely naive to the fact that this could be, on the cusp of bear market, and because there are things that are at play here that could potentially lead us into that market, right? And of course, these have to be acknowledged as black swan events. We had one over here in wave 2, for example. This wave 2 correction should never have actually gone down as low as it did. This was actually a pretty decent time to get into the market, and was actually where most altcoins actually started their bull runs, whereas Bitcoin actually started this back in December of 2018, along with a few others like Chainlink, for example. Now, this low point that we had here, this was driven from the pandemic, and this was actually an opportunity to kind of reset everything and kind of get things going. But there was a fair amount of pain here as we hit these low levels. Now, the difference between what is going on here and what is going on here is very, very little. So we should very much proceed with caution, and we should also kind of acknowledge that the real world events do have play on the technical data here. Now, in order for this to be kind of classed as a bear market, I'm talking about dropping down to $20,000, maybe lower. And if we do actually go into a bear market, historically speaking, we would be talking about a $10,000 Bitcoin. Now, that in itself isn't something that I'm overly fond of for a couple of reasons. One, it'll be the first time in history that we've actually seen Bitcoin drop down lower in a bear market than the previous years or previous bull runs all-time high, right? For that was $20,000. So to drop below $20,000 just simply hasn't happened in the history of Bitcoin during these peaks, right? So it's important that we understand that there's a probability factor to play into this. Do we realistically think $20,000 is going to get filled? I'm not 100% convinced that it will, but I do expect some volatility. What I'm actually secretly hoping for here is that actually the 32,900 range that was hit not too long ago is the bottom. And, what we want to avoid is moving this weekly stochastic RSI to the upside rapidly without actually doing any decent price discovery. And that is what happened over here, for example. Now, this particular scenario, we were in an oversold area on our charts. We moved up into an overbought area, and what I'll do is actually delete that and actually grab the right one, because that actually needs to come down here, and we can now progressively show this at 63%. Okay, so we moved the whole entire weekly stochastic RSI from an overbought area, so from an oversold area to an overbought area, and only generated 63%. Whereas when we're in the bull run, we actually went from oversold to overbought and drove 232 or 312%, for example. So what we're really looking for here is the same kind of level, right? We don't want necessarily just a 60% push to the upside. That would take us to about $52,000. What we really want to do is actually move up into that 226%, which would takes us into the $107,000 range, and of course completing the 5th wave. So we need to be very cautious here, because these black swan events such as the pandemic in March of 2020 and Ukraine-Russia right now, these are two things that actually have a lot of similarities to them. The stochastic RSIs were in very similar positions, and therefore we should be very cautious over what happens next. I'm not saying that there's not going to be a push to the upside. We can see that there's potentially a pretty decent push coming to the upside as we move this stochastic RSI to the upside. But if it gets into the overbought area too fast and we haven't actually made good progress here, that's a good time to maybe start to rethink our positions. Now, guys, I am going to leave the video there. If we have found this useful and informative, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe. Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you are going to be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With all this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.